Today is September 6th, Wednesday, 2023. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. I guess we're saying the pledge. We better all stand up. The guys are ready. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's like Steve's.
Can you hear us, Steve? Oh, looks like.
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, good.
a little delay.
Perfect.
Okay. Roll call, Randy, please.
Trustee Kidda?
Here.
Trustee Winslow?
Present.
Trustee Everson?
Here.
Trustee Marks?
Present.
Treasurer Johnson?
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Kangas, our attorney Roger Zappa. Lenny Bodina, Superintendent of Public Works, is on Zoom, and our staff planner Eric Powers is here tonight.
Okay, thank you for that. Any public? We don't really have any public.
I have nothing on email
No
either.
emails, okay. So tonight's consent agenda consists of approval of regular meeting minutes of August 16th, 2023. We have bills payable in the amount of $192,928.60. No other reports. I threw in some interesting reading. The ATC 2025 project that'll be coming through Marquette Township. I wanted to make sure the public saw the map, as it will be impacting some of our residents. I also put in the Iron Ore Heritage Rec Authority draft minutes. They've been busy with some of their expenses. I added the electronics recycling dates from Sands Township. If you remember, they got a grant for electronics recycling. They're not sure how long this will go. It depends on how much money that they have to spend. So the supervisor in Sands Township gave us the schedule through the end of the year. I'll have the secretary put that on the website or wherever, if she thinks maybe on the back of the utility bills if it's open, so we can let everybody know what they can bring up there. I also included the applicable for tonight for our solar discussion, the Michigan Township Insights article on renewable energy talks about commercial solar and wind scale projects, but the focus is on local control. So I just wanted to let you know. I did answer that survey though, by the way. Respect Marquette County Coalition was next. That's the quarterly meeting that they have that I attended downtown, so there's the quick notes. They usually have some kind of a speaker or presentation. It was DDA this time. It was very interesting with the what do you call it? Farmers market. And we'll talk about that solid waste in a minute. So I need approval of that unless anybody wants to talk more about it.
I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
Supports.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'm not aware of any conflicts of interest for this agenda, so we'll just need approval unless we have any changes.
I'll approve the regular agenda as presented.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next up is privileged comment. We're privileged to have Steve Arwood here on Zoom, and hopefully we can have a good connection. It seems like we will. He's going to talk about Invest UP and Build UP. Thank you for joining us,
Yes.
Steve.
Well, pleasure to be here tonight. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep. Sounds
Okay,
good.
perfect. For the record, I'm Steve Arwood. I'm the owner of SD Arwood Consulting in Grand Ledge, Michigan. And since the inception of Invest UP, which I helped found with some strategic advice work that I've done for Marty for years, I continue to serve as an advisor on policy initiatives to invest. And for the past 3 or 4 months, I've been working to stand up the program that I'm going to talk about tonight, Build Up. I've accepted the duties, or at least for the next year or so, being the fund manager of Build Up Fund, get it up and running. And I've been working pretty much to spread this program to our UP communities, and certainly welcome the opportunity to discuss it with you. Just a little bit of background, InvestUP, obviously located in Marquette, is the Upper Peninsula's kind of pan-economic development organization dedicated to prosperity in all of our communities. John Kennedy, trying to position the UP always in Lansing and other places as first and foremost in everyone's mind. And by every year we do 2 surveys a year of businesses and residents in the Upper Peninsula. It's a 600 sample survey. And this year, and growing last year, critical housing needs has become the #1 issue of everybody in the Upper Peninsula, whether it's businesses attempting to hire and retain, residents looking for a new home, residents looking to downsize, residents looking to upsize. And it's reflected across all market segments, whether it's what they call the missing middle, or if it's market rate, multifamily, apartments. The demand is just, as you well know, just across the board. A couple of interesting notes. In 2021, only 13% of the Upper Peninsula residents thought looking was due, and about 40% thought jobs and economy was the critical issue. Spring of this year, 2023, 31% of the residents of the UP believe housing is the critical issue, and jobs and economy has dropped to second. Most interesting, in the 18 to 29-year-old demographic, 41% think that housing is the issue that will either decide whether they can remain in the UP or not over a long period of time. The only demographic that is not concerned about housing right now is the demographic over 65. And that makes obvious sense. We're probably dealing with second owners, retirees, people that have sold downstate and moved to camp, or people that have, stayed in their homes for years and all that. So definitely a critical issue. And in the past 20 years, the UP has generally not built any new stock. A lot of it has been rehab. A lot of it has just been the natural rollover of housing stock. But the demand has obviously outpaced the supply. The current cost and interest climate, obviously, for development is not conducive. We're looking at, trying to get at a $2.25 price point, say, per rent, and on a new build, you're looking at anywhere from $3.25 to $3.50 to build that product. So you see where the gap's at. Interest rates on construction, construction loans, which for years hovered around 3 to 4%, are now statewide in the range of 7 and over 9%. And it costs just as much to build anything in the Upper Peninsula, maybe a little more, because of labor availability as it does downstate. But yet, in some parts of the Upper Peninsula, particularly in the rural parts of the Upper Peninsula, you can't command the rents to close that gap. And obviously, we know you can't, inflate rent or inflate price point to cover that gap, because you just don't get a lot more. So, with that kind of background, we were asked a couple of years ago by the legislature in Lansing, and with a lot of work by our legislators at that point in time, what can we do to work at solving some of these issues? Invest had a unique opportunity to go to the legislature and say, look, if you would entrust us with some regional money, we think we know how to put this to work and hopefully begin to leverage new construction starts and or rehabs. Obviously, our plan made sense. InvestUP was entrusted with $15 million of state appropriation to come up with a policy or policies and programs to address that. So we have announced 2, and the one I want to talk most primarily about tonight is the Residential Infrastructure Loan Program, which is primarily targeted toward communities which have prioritized housing as a community need. Essentially, what we would do, qualified community, and I'll explain what those terms mean, is that we would borrow, we would essentially buy your bonds. We would buy bonds below market rate, up to 6%, and we would amortize those over 15 years. The amortization schedule can be relatively flexible. Interest, start at different points in times. Terms and conditions can be worked out, but essentially a very simple, time-honored program of municipal finance that we will buy your debt. How would we do that? Well, we would have to qualify both the community and the eligible infrastructure. And I'll talk about what that means for a second. We are targeting new builds, rehabs, multifamily, apartments, and obviously single-family dwellings. We are looking at communities as unique. We are looking at communities that are smaller and saying, okay, 10 units in that community could mean a lot to that community. Larger communities have larger projects. Of course, there's a larger demand. And we're looking at it geographically, treat the UP as a, not much as particular. Eligible infrastructure that we would finance or help the community finance would be roads, curb and gutter, lighting, fire suppression, cable systems, sidewalks, anything that would lead to development of a housing. I'll give you a couple examples of maybe what we're looking at right now. We have one community who has a developer who is willing to build a substantial amount of units in this community. It's kind of Midwestern, Upper Peninsula. The community needs to extend a road and sewer along that road to the development project. In normal times, or in normal sense, most communities would say developer pay, but in this instance, and in many instances, what we're finding is that creates a gap that the developer can't overcome. So there's a partnership here between the community and the developer. What we are not looking to do, obviously, is to do speculative developments. However, in some communities where the community, village, the city, the township, or even the county may own property or have access to property, this program could give them an opportunity to go out for, say, an RFP and say, look, we'll partner together and we can extend the city services or the municipal services to this site. If by development agreement you agree to build a certain amount of units or whatever you're looking to do. Our considerations as we look through these programs, we have an application process, which is two-part. There's a pre-application process where we're seeking just the basics on what the community's idea is, and if it meets some of our program goals, and I'll go through a couple of those priority goals here in a second, then we proceed with a full application in the community and basically get into the structure of the deal. First and most important for us is the local units supportive and willing to prioritize this housing project. In other words, there's several things that we're looking for that are non-economic in terms of community support. Certainly the ability to potentially rezone, expedite planning review, anything that can get this project quickly built. Shovel ready is a term that we like to use. What we are talking about there is, can we commence this project in earnest literally within the next 18 months, but for our help. And maximum impact by community, and by that I mean a small community in UP, a gigantic impact for them, maybe 50 new units. 50 new units in a community like Marquette, that's important. But if somebody said we're going to do 80 units in Marquette, or we're going to do whatever's, we would certainly look at that. The other goal is this housing being built to fit the critical need market? And by that, are we working to attract and retain individuals to work in our communities and be part of it? So we are hoping Obviously, these are principal residents, and we're not looking to do what I would call the lifestyle or luxury lifestyle. The single, very high-end kingdom lot type of activity. This is more trying to create a maximum impact at that workforce level. So for the community, and in terms of municipal finance, this is an age-old process. We would look for the community pledge a payment stream, any legal credit that's statutorily legal by the state of Michigan. That can be general revenue, it can be a TIF, it can be special assessments, it could be a combination. We would simply look to see, can the community make this payment for the period of time they're committed to it? Also careful in looking at that situation that the community is not pledging something that might put them in a situation that they don't want to be in at some point in time. In other words, is this within their capacity? Are there ways that this can be structured to work with the community's finances in the most agreeable way? We don't want to saddle the community. We want projects done. The other thing we would look for is a development agreement with the developer. Has the community and the developer engaged? And is the developer committed, or is there some commitments that this project in phases or in pieces will get done? We know that right now and across the state, and probably more relevant down here, many developments are kind of in a whole pattern. Some have stopped completely, not because the demand's not there, but because it's just become increasingly impossible to finance some of these. It's a very transitional or a very traditional transaction. What we would do at Build Up is we would simply buy the bonds. We would work out how that would work, community by community, and buy the bonds. We're open for business, and we need to get this money out working. We're looking at this as certainly we have to protect Build Up's position, that we are not putting money into projects that may never happen. But on the other hand, we were entrusted with this money to leverage projects across the UP. So we will, go the extra mile, so to speak, with communities to do whatever we can do to make it work. The second program, which kind of can twain with this program, is a program that's called the Cash Collateral Program. Very simply, the cost pressures on the developer are the same. We are finding that there are several projects in the Upper Peninsula that are literally stuck because of rising costs have created a scenario where the banks simply can't lend into it because the debt coverage ratio is not healthy. What we have done is we've spent several hours talking to lending institutions in the UP, and thankfully, the UP is blessed with some wonderful community banks. There's kind of been a death of the community bank in the Lower Peninsula, but community banking in the Upper Peninsula is still strong and very vibrant. You've got some great community bankers that want to make loans, that want to get developments going in their communities. They know their communities. So we worked with them and we said, all right, what can we do with you to get you to make these loans? Because Invest is not a bank. We don't have the underwriting skills to make those loans. And so how do we position you to lend money? And what we simply came up with was a program where we will take a project with a bank, and if there's a collateral shortfall, if there's an appraised value gap before the project is fully occupied, if the developer, particularly smaller developers, can't come up with personal guarantees or the personal equity needed to satisfy the bank's coverage ratio, we will deposit with the bank cash collateral to backstop that loan, to backstop risk on the loan. The bank would make the loan. And as the loan is paid down, our collateral would be brought back with some very simple interest and allow us to revolve that money into additional projects. We currently have 4 projects in the queue that we're doing underwriting on. They're a wonderful mix of projects all across the UP. We have 3 to 4 additional projects that look like they will come in very soon. All told, this could be up to potentially our helping banks, your local banks, lend developers money to bring about 160 new units of all types across the Upper Peninsula. So we're quite excited about that. But I just wanted to give you this information on the local infrastructure program. We've had a lot of interest in it. We haven't actually closed one of these deals yet. As I said, we're in the middle of one. But I wanted you to know all of this as you look at your future, your planning, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Wow, that's pretty comprehensive, Steve. One question that I thought, when you're talking about working with municipalities and doing roads or infrastructure, how do you work with the road commissions if it's like a township? How does that come into play? Or if it's a city, how do you work with their municipal utilities?
Yeah, well, again, we have to sell somebody or buy somebody's debt. And at 2%, that's pretty, up to 2% interest, that's pretty reasonable money. Unfortunately, those that don't have a taxing mechanism or a special mechanism to assess, it becomes literally impossible to do that type of deal, as I understand it under state law. Obviously, debt comes first, and the borrowing entity would have to be able to pledge from a revenue stream. Now, if a community came to me and said, we don't have the capacity to do that, we can't do a special assessment, but there might be some other way we can do this, we'd certainly listen to it. But at some point in time, I get, my hands get tied by what legally the entity that is requesting this. For example, under state law, a municipality is not supposed to go to a bank and borrow money. But I know over the course of my history, that's happened in several communities. And it's like, oops. So there's some things there. Now, we have access to a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me on this, and there may be other ways to structure this, but if a community can, make a payment stream while these projects, come out of the ground and dedicate some source of revenue, whether it's new taxes or TIF district, sewer and water tap fees, or different new revenue streams come in but for this. That's probably the most traditional way to go. Beyond that, I'd have to look at every case specifically and see if that's something. I know that was a long-winded way of saying I don't know what we could do with the road commission because they're not a taxing authority. Now, if they had the ability to levy some type of road tax, and they could pledge some of that stream. I know there are some communities downstate that counties, at least downstate, have road assessments. That would be a totally different scenario. In the case of Marquette or other communities in the UP, I wouldn't know how that.
Yeah. Yep, we've done the assessment too. Any questions for Steve? Great, good information, especially for staff who might be working with some of these developers and asking questions and trying to figure out what the township needs, I'm sure. So thanks, I appreciate the information.
No problem in it, and you can go to the Invest website, and on the upper left-hand corner, there's an icon that says Build Up, and you can draw down all the documents related to the program.
Yeah, question.
I have one question. Ernie Johnson, treasurer. Where do you get your money from? Where does it come from?
It was appropriated by the state of Michigan. In other words, it was a straight appropriation. It was a grant, so to speak, to do this work. It was done by the legislature.
So I think you got the 7.5 million, and
Or-
then next year you get the other 7 or something, right?
Yeah. Your local legislative coalition was fabulous on this. We made the case that the Upper Peninsula needed some additional leverage on some of these issues. And in fact, Invest was the only economic development organization statewide that received an appropriation.
Okay, Linda, go ahead.
So, Linda Winslow, so Invest UP got the money, and is the money going to be, I'll say, somewhat equally divided amongst is the UP divided into 3 sections? Is there an east, a west, and a middle, or are we gonna put all these in one section, or we don't know
Well,
yet?
Yeah, we have to be a certain degree agnostic, but on the other hand, what we've seen coming in right now, we have projects in Sioux, Escanaba, up in Houghton, Manistee, Marquette, the Crystal Falls area, and we anticipate something probably coming in from the way at West End. So, except for like the St. Ignace area, pretty much all points are being hit right now. And that's not by our design, that's just how our responded.
So it's 7.5 million this year, and then people will need to reapply next year for when the other 7.5 million is that how it's structured?
Yeah, well, I think I heard your question right. I missed a bit of it. What we have, once we commit the 7.5 million, then we can draw down the other 7.5. But this is largely federal funds that flowed into the state from the COVID response. Part of the big surplus the state divvied up. We do have to get this money committed by the end of the next calendar year.
So
There's
usually a time
We
frame.
need to get it out. Yeah.
So we can tell someone if we have a project that we're looking at in our community, then they should contact you if they're looking for funding. Is there, you said there's 2 applications?
Yeah, one is developers interest. This is a developer who's trying to borrow money and it's got a shortfall. So the developer would contact us directly. We talk to him or her and pre-qualify that program. The other is the community-based program that's more driven. The bond program is more driven by the community. The developer can't sell us a bond, so it would have to be through the community. But if there's a developer that comes into you and has a development project, and they're trying to put together how this could work, certainly you can send them my way. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. My goal here is to create new housing units in the Upper Peninsula. That's
That would
that's my
align
job.
That would align with the goal of Marquette Township, which is to create affordable workforce housing for what the workforce in this community is paid. Paid is, I guess, the right word. Yeah, we have certainly we have a shortage, I'm told, every day by someone.
Yeah, and again, you know, we're looking at trying to be impactful. And impactful is, can we get various types of units at attainable by the people that are looking for. And that means different things in different communities. It really does.
It absolutely does.
And so, I mean, and believe me, having been in this space for quite a while, it's not just one type of unit people are looking for. I was amazed at some of these survey, kind of when you get in the weeds of these surveys, that of that 18 to kind of 29 to 34-year-old category of respondents, they're actually looking to move up. They want to upscale, want something bigger. You know, they want 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and a basement and garage. That's, you know, we've got the move up scenario, and I get it. We all want to move up. It's just that, like I said, we just have not built a lot of that stock in the last 20 years. I think I saw a statistic, and I don't want to get quoted on this, and I could dig it back out, but I think there was less than like 600 building permits for new residential units pulled in the entire UP, I believe in calendar 2022.
So how are you, I'm sorry, Steve. I was just going to say, how are you kind of advertising this? Who are you contacting across the UP? What are your connections?
Anybody that is either reacts and says we want to know more. We've done some videos. We've worked with the bankers, organizations, talked to all the economic development organizations. Now I'm trying to get it down to local government, taking an opportunity when I can to speak to township, boards, counties, you know, whomever is interested in this. And of course, the developer community is quite aware of it. We actually have, interesting enough, that this has interested some downstate developers who are looking at bringing some product into the UP where they may not have done that before. And, you know, some might say, well, you know, but financially they have the wherewithal to do it, and they're willing to put up, you know, some significant amounts of units where there's not a lot of local development capacity. So that's been interesting. I think that when I look at the range of products and market offerings that we're looking at with what's in here already, we have some downtown rehab, which includes upper level apartments. We have multifamily. We have some mid-market price condos. We have, it's just kind of every market segment. We have some interesting projects in the Keweenaw that are relatively small, but important to the communities that they're in. And we have a fairly sizable one in and around Marquette that I wasn't even aware of, that has expressed some interest with a significant amount of units. So, yeah, it's been pretty brisk, and we've only been out kind of really promoting this since about the second week of August.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody? Okay. Well, thanks. We appreciate the information. Hopefully we can indirectly help you somehow.
Yeah. Well, like I said, any follow-up questions, give me a shout. Webpage, I'm completely available. If there's anybody that's interested in knowing So thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Okay, you too. Thanks for joining us.
All right, goodbye.
Bye-bye. All right, community linkage. The last time I went to the Solid Waste Authority meeting, they had an interview there. And Rob Bennett, I'm not sure where that stands. I haven't gotten an update, but it was a very good interview, I thought. So we'll see where that goes. That's for the director's position, of course. I also asked about the post-closure fund. You've seen that in some of their paperwork before, their packets. Because it seems like they go for a number and then, you know, they're taking money and moving it into the capital fund, and so that's what I was asking is, how are you able to do that, or how is this working? So apparently the state reviews the whole landfill operation quarterly, based on, I'm sure, some kind of formula and information that they provide. So that number does change. And it's typically around 2.9 million or 3 million that they have to have in reserve for any post-closure costs that they'd incur. That 50-year date keeps moving back, which is good. I mean, it says that the authority is managing their assets well and the property well. I do have some information I can put in the next packet too on that. So that's how they're able to do that. If they end up putting in up to 3 million and they find they need, you know, 500,000 for a project or something, they take it out. And if the state says, well, you need another 400,000, then they put 400,000 in or whatever. I'm just throwing numbers, that this is not real, but that's the way they explained it to me, that they have that fluidity to go back and forth a little bit. Because I was concerned if they're required to put money away, how can they move it to these other funds? So those were the questions, excuse me, those are the things that I asked about. I did ask about the landfill fire that they had. As I told you before, this was the second one that they've had in 2 years, 2 or 2.5 years. And it is the batteries that's causing the problem. We need to keep the batteries out of the landfill. Don't throw them away. My understanding was that if you taped them and threw them away, it was okay, and I suppose that could be, but they said they do have a way of recycling those. So it's not like the glass where they're repurposing it, and they typically say they're recycling glass, but they're not. They're repurposing it. They're not sending it back to the manufacturers to be recycled. They're repurposing it, and they're working with tech still on trying to figure out how to get that product, the crushed glass, into the road repair. They've got a whole section or a mile or whatever that they're going to test, or they are testing, that they've laid to see if this glass particle crushed can maybe substitute for sand or cement or something like that. So they are repurposing the glass, but they are recycling the batteries. So please put some tape on the ends of your batteries and take them to the local drop spots. We've put that on the website. You can look at our website. It's on Recycle 906's website to prevent these fires. I told you last time that's been about $66,000 for that last fire that they had to put out. So that's our money that, you know, they're getting that from rates. It's costing us. So I wanted to point that out. Let's see. We also talked about house and businesses addresses. So if you're still doing your yard work and maintenance on your property, whether it's a house or a business, consider putting your numbers on the building for fire and any kind of emergency services that you might need. We're thinking winter. Don't just rely on your mailbox numbers, because those mailboxes get covered up. And so do your maybe you have lights at the end of your driveway with the number on. They get covered up with snow. Put it on your house. Also with the trash and recycling, now for Marquette Township tonight, it's Wednesday. We're going to put all our containers out. Don't put it out don't put your recycle out if it's not half full or more. It's more economical if they have it at least half full.
Tonight?
No, not tonight.
Yeah, Wednesday.
No, Lynn, on your side, it's Wednesday.
Oh,
On
that's
this
true.
side, it is
Monday night.
Yes, okay, thanks for that.
That's okay.
I'm
Jan is gonna put it.
Yeah, tonight?
Yeah, that's right. Good, thanks for mentioning that.
So since we're talking about that, someone mentioned that the waste hauler had a separate truck picking up recyclables in Trowbridge. We might want to see if they're trying something new. But in a reminder to people, don't put your trash garbage, your throwaway garbage, on top of your recyclable container.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to get picked up. Your recycles won't get picked up because the truck has an arm, so it's not a person.
Sometimes, yeah, John, some of them do.
So John can tell us
I
I
know,
more.
yeah.
think we had posted on our Facebook page a week or two ago that they were demoing a new truck. And I don't know what the status of that is, but it was a week or two ago that they were trying out this new truck.
So some people in our neighborhood didn't get their recyclables picked up because the trash was on top of it.
Okay. All this education that we have to try to do for everybody when something is new. We'll be talking about the North Country contract in the next few months, because that's up. So maybe Lenny can get some more information for us too at some point on what we need to do, so we can get that out. I also included the electronics recycling I told you about Sands Township. They're gonna keep that going as long as they can, as long as the money's still there. They have a grant for that. And I put that schedule in for you. The next time is going to be September 16th, a week from Saturday, from 10 to 2. And then tomorrow, I've got a road relations meeting with the road commission. That's supervisors meeting with them quarterly. So if you think of anything you want me to talk to them about or ask about, that's usually the time for the supervisors to bring something to them and ask questions. I'm gonna kinda ask if they have funding for Commerce Drive, but I'm sure they don't. Because of the letter we got last meeting from the resident, I told them I'd kind of follow up with it.
Can you ask them, I know Christmas is a little ways away, but can you ask them what the process is, or the application, or how we get some signage on particularly Vanden Boom during the holidays, so people only
Like the
park on one
decorations?
side?
I will bring that up.
Right.
I did mention that
It's,
before.
yeah, yeah, we didn't have any issue this year with parking at Community Day.
Question.
Oh, so not just Christmas?
Well, but we didn't have any issue because no
Yeah.
one parked, so I don't know if it's a process.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Mike, does the sheriff's department have any no parking signs, police no parking sign?
The office?
Well, something that we can just stick in the snowbank even for a short period of time like the city does?
I'll look in our Sally port, but I don't believe we have any extras, but I'll check tonight and I'll let you know.
Okay, something like that even, you know, just from police, no parking this side of street, you know, something temporary.
It's still kind of
I think we.
Thank you.
falls under the road commission, though. Well, I mean, we can't just have him do that. We still have to, the road commission has to,
Yeah, okay.
well, I'll ask him.
Yeah, yeah, they're gonna jump right on that one too, aren't
I'll
they?
ask him.
We'll buy the signs.
Yeah.
I'll take my crayons out and make some signs before they'll do something. Did I say that out loud?
Yes. All right, what else? What are you hearing? Anything? Anybody calling you or stopping you in the store?
I'm hearing the same things that we probably have heard. Lots of cars without current license plates on in people's yards. Lots of trash not being picked up. Someone asked if we could do, I guess I would call it a trash pickup in the spring and the fall. Maybe something we can talk to the hauler about, how much that would really cost. So yeah, people are chatting out there, so I wish more people would come and chat.
When the leaves drop down, then we're gonna see it even more.
But yeah, I
It's a good
did,
thing Eric's here. 'cause
yeah,
that's
I did notice, and I think they have to be licensed, or I don't think they can park them on the road without license plates on them. I mean, we have someone doing that.
Not keeping their grass and yards up, weeds yay high.
They're wildflowers too.
They're leaving it natural look.
Yeah, that's their excuse.
Okay, that's good for Eric to hear that. Even if something else
They're gonna
to
be
do.
busy, Eric.
I don't hear it from residents. I don't hear complaints, so if I don't hear it from residents, then about specific addresses, then there's not a lot I can do.
So there you go. The people who are complaining need to call the office.
I wonder if we need to have a form where they can fill out online and a signature, and that would keep our staff from not having to hear the story. But we would get the information we need. I'm guessing we don't have that today, just a Google Doc form.
The best they have on our current website is an ability to send staff members an email. And that works, because I get them on occasion.
Were you able to ever follow up on that address I gave you? Because nothing's changed.
We can probably talk about that. at a
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Okay, well, I just wondered if he maybe sent a letter or something, I don't know,
Yeah.
so, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the public can contact us anyhow, any way, I mean, just let us know what we can do. We do have ordinances and stuff that cover a lot of this, so unless we know about something, we can't, same thing with the sheriff, unless they know about something, they can't fix it. John?
And the subdivision covenants cover that,
Yeah.
and cover it well.
Okay, let's keep going, we've got staff
We
waiting.
can find it.
All right, consider 3 applicants for hire as paid on-call EMTs and firefighter. Do we have,
Chief Shanahan had a family medical issue to attend to this evening.
It's your recommendation.
Okay.
He's recommended it, and it has to be your recommendation to move forward.
right, I just didn't know if it was something he wanted to do and we had to move it.
No,
I would
he's-
believe that he probably met with them all and stuff, right?
yeah.
Yeah, but by the time we get it, he wants to do it.
I'd like to approve the recommendation of the fire chief and the township supervisor to hire Clint McLeod? McLeod, okay, probationary firefighter, Maya Highland as a probationary EMT, and Micah First as a probationary EMT.
We have a motion and support. Any conversation? Okay, all in
Nice.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nice to see new blood.
Especially 3, that's pretty good. Okay, consider Crown Castle, the AT&T cell tower lease modification. We have our Superintendent of Public Works here for that. Lenny?
Yes, hello, everyone. So this is basically, we had received a request to put an addendum onto our current lease. This would be for the Crown Castle cell tower that's located up at our Cox Tank location. At first blush, it doesn't look like they're gonna be really doing a lot, putting new like antennas for a different broadband company. It looks like it's gonna be a 5G internet company. So they actually, as part of this, they would have to get the board's consent to proceed with it. I did send the current agreement to Attorney Zappa, and he looked it over. And it looks like whenever they do add any kind of equipment to one of these sites, we are entitled to additional rent. I did go back to the representative from Crown Castle. I just got an email back today with their offer. They're offering an additional $300 a month on top of the lease, and it would also be subject to the terms of the agreement, which provides for like a cost of living increase or an increase based on inflation every 5 years. So right now, Crown Castle is currently paying us $1,919.74. Then the $300 would be in addition to that. So this is just their offer to us. I mean, the board can accept it. The board can say we want more. You know, whatever. I did look up just kind of some quick lease just on Google. Look at some like agreements and how they figure out lease agreements. Looks like it's kind of based on a bunch of different factors like population and area. It looks like in Michigan right now, again, these aren't hard numbers, but just kind of things I looked on online. It looks like in Michigan, the average lease is about $2,333 per tower, and the U.S. average is about $1,145 per tower. So that's just kind of rough numbers that I've looked up online. They could be different. I didn't find any hard and type of facts of how they determine lease prices. So this is what we have in front of you. If we do agree to it, I would just be signing the form that I had sent over. If you guys want to negotiate on it, we can go back and see what they offer.
Ernie?
I talked to Lenny a little bit today, because at that point in time, I didn't know how much it was. Personally, I don't know if $300 a month is good, bad, or indifferent. I have no idea. I have no way of doing it. So I looked at one of the comments that the company gave was that broadband is a smaller internet provider. They're working with a smaller budget than traditional wireless. That's true, but they have 75,000 customers in the states, and in Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and they're in 19 states. They're talking about 5G, and they're talking about megahertz. I'm onto that. I don't get involved with that anymore. I don't understand all these megahertz they're talking about at this point in time. So I don't know if it's a good one or not. I know that they just purchased some more power, or however you want to call it, megahertz and that. They're in bidding with a number of others in that. They weren't the smallest, they weren't nowhere near the largest one. Largest was Verizon and US Cellular and T-Mobile. They were up in the millions of dollars. And they purchased, what they bought was $2.6 million. So it's a small company, but they're all over the United States, and it's 5G, and it's a type of channel that you're going to see more and more on. So I have no background on it other than what I can read. So I have no idea if this is a good dollars for the township or not. I have no way of coming up with anything like that. So it's hard to tell. Reading on everything, it's a small company that's really moving quite quickly into the future in that. And the question I have for Lenny is this $300, is that coming from the castle themselves? That will be part of their current dollar amounts then? That won't be coming from broadband. Broadband will be paying them, and then we will be getting from, broadband is not paying us, correct?
I'm not really sure how it would work. I know Crown Castle is the organization that holds a lease, so I'm going to assume that it's going to come from them as part of their regular payment. So their payment would go up to, if the $300 a month was agreed to, the payment would go up to $2,219, if I'm looking at this correctly.
And you're saying it's not going to be only adjusted every 5 years?
Yes, the current agreement allows for adjustment every 5 years, so that would be based on the inflation rate.
Okay, John?
None of us deal with this situation on a daily basis to know what the true market value is. The point I wanted to make is they want to add additional equipment to a pole that's already standing out there, for which we are already collecting a monthly lease fee. We have, per the wise decision-making of prior administrations with the assistance of our attorney, in our agreement, language that allows an incremental increase in the revenue for additional subleases on this existing tower. So any more equipment they put on there, we're entitled to slightly more, in some increment, revenue. What it does is it provides customers in the area more options. The higher that fee becomes, the more those customers will ultimately pay, because you know it only gets passed on. That's just the way that these things work. They offered a number. You have the ability to make a counteroffer to see if they're willing to consider it, or you can accept it, or you can say you don't want to add any 5G equipment on our existing lease. I don't think that's a good idea, because 5G is the future. In fact, it's the present. If you go to any metro area, that's the only signal you get on your cell phone. We still only have 5G on many of our mobile networks locally. We only have 4G or LTE. Some are 5, but very little. So they're expanding that network into the more rural areas, since we are sort of, I forget what the language is called in the transportation world. It's not metro, but it's sort of sub-metro. So anyway, I don't know that I have a great recommendation for you. Anything more that we get for them to put additional equipment on their monopole is better than we're currently getting, with probably limited impact on us, aside from more broadband waves floating around in the air, I suppose. And I have no idea, I'm not an expert, what the impact of that will be on individuals in the vicinity, but we know 5G is coming no matter what. It's all a matter of how much of it ends up on the poles on township property under our current leases. To answer the question, who's going to pay us, our agreement is with Crown Castle. Crown Castle will pay us. We don't have sub-agreements with anyone else on that. It's their pole. They're asking for permission to put another company's equipment on that pole. And in exchange, we are entitled to additional compensation.
So Lenny, as far as we know, because this is so simple, there's really no impact to the township around it, as far as, it's not a new pole that's gonna be in the way, it's already on equipment, it's not gonna impact our staff or anything, correct? This is just.
No, it's just gonna be installed in the existing pole. Probably 99.9% of people never even see a difference on the physical pole. Probably only the people who are watching them install it will actually see what they're putting up, the additional equipment here. So, so yeah, there'll be very little impact. There won't be any impact at all, except for what Manager Kangas had already mentioned. And with the additional revenue that we'll get from our additional rent, it'll actually put us pretty close to what the average rental is in the state of Michigan.
Okay. Roger, you had something?
I had circulated an email late in the afternoon just indicating somebody ought to go and look to see whether wherever this is going to have any adverse impact on our use of the water tower, because it's on our water tower property. I did that on my way here. And I recalled that we had one lease that was physically inside the water tower perimeter of the fence, because in that lease, we negotiated free new fencing when they put it in. But this is not that one. This tower, it had been a long time since I've been there, is actually in its own fenced area outside of the water tower fencing. So it would have minimal or no impact on the township's use of the premises. They do have an easement to drive to and from for their service vehicles and so forth. And one of the issues of being inside our fence was, if an issue comes up, we're supposed to be able to provide them close to 24/7 access. But this one is outside of our fence with its own set of locks and keys, it appears, so we don't even have an impact on staff
if something goes haywire with the equipment on the tower. And I believe they have easements from two directions. They have up the windy Cox, from Cox Avenue, but then also alongside the fire, well, it was the fire hall, alongside the Public Works building.
Right.
Randy?
I'll make a motion to approve the Crown Castle request to sublease a portion of the cell tower located on the Cox Tank property for additional increase in rent, which is $300 per month, and authorize the supervisor to sign the consent.
Support.
Okay, motion and support. Ernie?
I think with this, they're talking about an MM wave spectrum, which is new, coming into the 5G stuff. If you look down the road, we all may be going that way, not knowing it too. Because 5G, I don't know if it's here or not, to the point where we have access to it or not, but it's coming. And this is another way of doing it, and they have kind of an exclusive grant for some of this. So we may be looking at them in the future to utilize them for township stuff and that. But like I say, I have no background and that whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, we have to go with what we know and that.
Dan?
I'd say one question, should that motion also include the total monthly of 2219?
It'll be included, I think, in that. Is that form that the supervisor has to sign, Lenny? Does that have the total monthly money on there?
It does not at this time. That's actually a question I was gonna ask Attorney Zappa, if should they actually amend the agreement, or is that consent form the proper way to do it?
We altered their consent form to say that if it was signed, we're consenting subject to our right to additional sublease payment. So an additional reference, we could say see attached or something, and I'm assuming that there's something in writing that specifies that this is what they're offering. We can talk about that logistics tomorrow. It should be referenced, but there are many ways we can accomplish that. It doesn't have to be a complete retype of the whole form.
Well, the motion does say $300 above and beyond what they're paying now, so.
But that's why I thought maybe $300 above the 2219, just covering our butt.
22 includes the 300, right, Lenny? It's 19 now?
Yeah, it's right now, as of
Total.
the statement of June, the last one I got. Well, wait a second here. My number, it should still be accurate. My numbers are actually from last year, the $1,919, but it should still be accurate. But I would say like $300 above and beyond their current payment, just to make sure I do have the right number. The numbers I have right now are from late 2022.
Just so something's in there to cover it. Thank you.
And the phrase "covering our butt" will not be included in the motion.
Aye?
Okay, so this is before August 25th. On here, it says provide the consent, but it doesn't really say, this must not be the form because it doesn't even have a time frame. It doesn't say,
Right.
from for the next 5 years, beginning at such a date or whatever. So I guess.
They kind of sent some vague stuff on purpose, I think, and so yeah, I mean that's why I wanted everything to be looked at pretty closely here. So
Yeah.
I think if Lenny works with Roger, we'll get it taken care of that at this point in time.
Yeah.
We're agreeing to the money part and the contract.
We can type in a minor revision tomorrow on the form,
Okay.
because we did that once already on the form, so we'll be just adding another line.
Okay.
The first revision is what prompted the offer of the additional $300 per month, which you are now accepting, and they need to be clearly notified of that. So a second paragraph underneath the leaseor signature, name and title is very appropriate.
Okay. Good? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Consider quote to renovate the outfield at Lions Field.
If you don't mind, I'd like to take the lead on this. We thought we were going to have a proposal for you to consider this evening. When we received it, we didn't feel it was something that we could in good conscience send to you because it was a little too open-ended. We would like to see something that's a not to exceed proposal that we would actually be willing to share with our attorney to make sure that all the bases are covered. We didn't get there yet in this time frame, but it is something that we're still desperately trying to get done this season. However, the original funding for this project was in last year's budget and we never got it done. We've got about $28,000 that went into the fund balance at the end of last year. What I'm requesting is that funding be approved to be put back into the budget in the form of a budget amendment if we can get to an agreement to do the work. And of course, you'd still have the opportunity to consider whether or not what we're bringing to you is agreeable. You're not agreeing to do the work yet. If you do agree, it's agreeing to allow us at a future date to put that money back into this year's budget that we did not spend last year. It's about $28,000 and change. The 28 is probably enough. That being said, we don't have an agreement worth considering yet.
Is there a reason that you haven't gotten an agreement from, thank you, John, from them?
We have an agreement. We sent our response back to them saying we need some better assurances that this isn't going to be an uncontrolled cost escalation type of agreement. We need to protect the taxpayers. And until it's something that I feel I'm comfortable sharing with our attorney, I would say we don't have anything for you to consider.
But they knew we were gonna meet tonight, right?
Yes, they did. This was returned to them sometime, we didn't get it until late last week, right as the board packet was being put together, and we requested some clarification, which we have not yet received.
So it might be in the next packet, possibly.
Hopefully, because we're running out of fall. And it would include stripping the topsoil because that topsoil is losing its organic strength and full of weeds. We need to plant new grass.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, the dollars are there, we're just not acting on anything at this point in time. And that, so it's kind of a mute question right now, till we get some documentation to go forward in that.
Yeah, we're just 9 months removed from last year's budget, and I'm guessing most people didn't know. I didn't remember what the amount was. Kim had to tell me what we hadn't spent last year. We purchased some irrigation materials, but never got it in the ground, and that's probably a good thing because this landscape contractor recommended stripping that topsoil and replacing it to get a better outfield.
Does that include filling that back corner?
Correct.
Yes.
And that would bring up the corner using a retaining wall block, including the fence, which may involve some township staff, but we'll figure that part out.
Okay, so we're not gonna mess with it tonight, okay? Okay,
Table it.
thanks, Lenny.
If you had said, no, we're not interested in digging that money back out of the fund balance, then we'd know what the answer was. We won't pursue this any harder.
You want a motion, or
Do we need a
just-
motion to table this?
Just a consensus is fine at this point, because we'd have to come back to you with the budget amendment anyway.
He's just pulling it off the agenda for action.
Yeah, there's no agreement for you to consider at
You
this
don't want
time.
to table it because that's just a whole other mess. Don't table it.
Yeah.
Don't go to tabling.
We'll just do next agenda. Okay, let's move on then. Consider amendment to Marquette Township zoning ordinance solar energy systems language, the second reading. Thanks for your patience, Eric. This is, we went through this last time. Eric made a presentation, answered questions, but we're required to have it twice, to hear it twice. So
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of the Township Zoning Ordinance Solar Energy Systems Amendment. And then that'll be, as soon as it's approved, it will be put in the paper, and then it'll be published, and then it'll be live in a certain amount of time. I don't know, maybe a
I believe
week.
it's a 30-day window.
30-day window, yeah.
So beginning of October. we're
If it's
looking at
approved,
formal
yeah.
adoption.
Is it supported?
It is, yeah.
Ernie?
Just for Eric, has anyone ever contacted you on doing some of this for the residential properties at this point in time?
There is a particular contractor who actually told me last week that he's sitting on a few township applications, waiting for this language to go formal, to go live before he submits those, because he doesn't want people he's working with, township residents, to go through that special use permit process, just because time consuming and money consuming, so.
No, we have to have, is it 30-day waiting period before anything can be done?
just said, yeah.
So you can inform them that we get the 30-day, then we can move, actually, you can do a lot of the work prior to that, just set back.
I've told him just that he can feel free to submit those applications to me. I can have them basically reviewed and ready to be signed and stamped come that date, and they can move forward, assuming that snow's not flying by that point, so.
Is it 30 days from publishing or from today?
From publishing, yeah.
Publishing, that's what I thought. Okay. Anything?
It's a roll call vote.
No. Nothing else? Okay, go ahead.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee Winslow?
Yes.
Trustee Kidda?
Yes.
Trustee Everson?
Yes.
Trustee Marks?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Durant?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Spent a lot of time for nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we should have probably moved him up.
He got educated, though.
He did, there's some things he needed to hear anyway, so that worked out good. All right, consider proposal for boardroom dais modification. There we go, Dan. John?
We've been talking about this for a long time, and I think that we've had some good hands involved in it. I'll move to authorize the proposed option 2 and approve the relocation of the CIP funds in this year's budget in the amount of $19,547.38.
Support.
This work would be added to the existing Township Hall remodeling contract as of change order 1.
Okay, we have motion and support. Ernie?
Just looking at this, if someone wants to know what we're talking about, this 2 inches, someone wants to explain it so people know what we're spending the additional dollars there for $3,000 for 2 inches, what it amounts to, and that?
It takes the height of this top down 2 inches, and it's not actually reducing it at the top. It's taking 2 inches off the bottom. As our resident expert carpenter advised, it was a really good idea. It takes it out of that toe plate at the bottom. That way, we don't have to sit up so high to see over the top.
And for people to see us online too, it's a little bit easier.
And if anyone's wondering why we came up with 2 inches, when you take the height out of the bottom, theoretically, this countertop would go down 2 inches. So then it has to be moved back up. It's coming off anyway because we're replacing it as part of the original plan, but we can't go above the bottom of the faceplates on these outlets. So we're limited to that amount unless we want to maybe add another 3,000 to it, but I wouldn't recommend it. I think 2 inches is going to give you a lot more comfort in seeing over. That being said, I'm 5'6", and this height is okay for me, so this isn't for me, this is for you.
We can always get a cushion for Linda to sit up a little higher.
Years ago, we'd do the phone book. I'm from Milwaukee, and you could do the phone book, but there isn't one anymore.
Not that big anymore.
No. Well, and they did notice that the chairs, some of the chairs don't go underneath that, so they were gonna adjust for that too. John?
It occurs to me the wording in the action item I prepared for you said change order number 1. It may be 1 or 2 because we had to add the phone and data cabling to the end of the project. All of the boxes were included, but not the wiring back to the server room. So I would, if you would be so kind, change the language from 1 to 1 or 2.
We will.
1 or 2.
Okay. What else? Any other questions? So like you said, Dan, we would have at least one meeting probably. He figured 30 days roughly. Have at least one meeting, maybe in the community room, but
If need be.
thanks to Randy, we've got the connections and
We got a portable
knows how
camera.
to do
We
that.
have a portable camera we can use, and
Randy's very good at.
we got a
at
portable,
electronics.
it will make it work for a
We're
few
lucky to have
meetings.
him.
because they're gonna take this away.
Yeah, this room will be totally out of realm for 30 days, so.
Thank you. My neck isn't long enough, John. I keep trying to stretch, but.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we have a roads committee report.
Turn your, yeah.
Yes, we did meet yesterday, and we're continuing to monitor our street lighting and looked at our ordinance on that, and also intersections that are getting a little bit grown in as far as trees and stuff. So if you happen to notice anything like that, please report that to either somebody on our committee or staff so that they're able to, we have to let the county know so that they can take care of that. So any kind of things like tree trimming or potholes or anything like that, we can take a look at.
I'll give you one right now, Warner Street and Erickson on the southeast corner. You can't see east unless you.
That's a repeat every year, for sure.
They need to trim that back.
But I believe we had a retirement in the senior leadership of their field crew out of the Ishpeming office, so Lenny's gonna have to maybe remind them that that's on their annual list.
They can't see the stop sign, I guess is the issue.
As a board of light and power, are they gonna be also doing some of this trimming? Or I noticed my neighbor just today had some white with red striped ribbon around a few trees that are really infringing upon the wires. And I thought maybe that was light and power that gave him that ribbon to put on there.
It could be.
Okay.
If you go over and talk to them about a tree that's right on the edge of your property, that they'll give you the ribbon, and then they'll come back and look at it and see if it's, and they'll take it down. You have to get rid of everything, but they'll drop it for you.
They tried to get him to do that when the one was on fire, and they said we can't do more than what our work order says to do. So then I guess they'll have to come back and,
There is supposed to be some of the residents have had letters from BLP saying they are gonna be doing trimming, but nobody's seen it happen yet. So that was another question as to when, but we don't know for sure.
hopefully it is.
It's a never-ending job.
Right.
If BLP does that again, I will work with Lenny to get staff to go behind him and clean up the brush and get rid of it.
Really?
That worked out pretty well last time, so.
Perfect.
Anything else?
No, that's about it. Thank you.
Thanks. We have no public left. Any announcements from anybody?
I have one, Lynn. Speaking of elections, with early voting, the county has decided they're going to utilize 6 sites for early voting. And Marquette Township is listed as one site. We are going to be combined with Powell Township. The voting will be here, so Powell Township voters can come here and vote early. The 9 days before the federal elections, federal or state elections. I will be bringing to you probably next meeting a resolution that will state that will be an early voting site. So the county, a little background, the reason the county did this, it saves a lot of money by paring things down to sites, like 6 sites around the county. We can do some cost sharing and utilize more workers and such. So I think it'll be a good thing. Powell Township, most of the residents have to come this way anyway, so it's probably a good thing it's here. And I don't think there'll be super many of them, but it'll be here.
Those that don't can always do absentee.
Correct, yeah. Absentee is still in force, so if they don't want to come in person to early vote, they can still do absentee. But early voting is just going to be Marquette Township Precinct 1 and 2 and Powell Township Precinct 1, and we'll have a separate machine programmed for that. So, they'll just come in and vote like they usually do, run their ballot through the machine, and they'll be done, so. And then we are having a training day, September 21st here, Thursday. I think it's like from 8:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. We're having some state folks come up and do some training with local. Pretty much a lot of folks from the UP, around the UP will be here. They asked me how many the room can hold. I said 100. So we might have a lot of folks here that day. So it'll be good. And we're central, and it's nice they're finally bringing some training up here for us instead of us having to go down state every time. So
That's a Saturday then,
it's a Thursday, September 21st, I believe.
September 23rd?
Sir, first.
Thursday.
Thursday, the 21st.
Okay.
It'll be in the community room, and I think we're gonna, I don't have the details yet, but we'll be hosting that day, so it'll be nice. And that's all I have. I'll keep everyone appraised of any new election stuff coming up, but, and then the other thing Linda pointed out, and I can show you on the computer, is after the senior services presentation last meeting, Trustee Winslow wanted me to put a link on our website for seniors to go to get to that website. So if John can zoom in on our website, up on the top bar, there is a link now for senior services right here.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they just click on it, and it'll go right to the Senior Center, City of Marquette website, and it has all the information for the seniors on there, so. So there is a link now on our website for that.
Good idea.
All right?
Okay. Any other announcements? Anybody? Okay. Manager?
You have my written report. The most important part of that report is the fact that the CIP is being worked on. I'm expecting the worksheets back from department heads by the end of this week. One new one that we discussed is the proposed resurfacing of the tennis court. That would allow us to restripe it then for 4 pickleball courts in addition to the tennis court. And that would require some heavier duty mobile pickleball nets that can be moved off to the side for when you play tennis. There's some issues there regarding durability and vandalism and that kind of thing that we're going to have to figure out, but if that recommendation does in fact come from the rec committee, then we would include it in the CIP request for next year. The resurfacing, we think there's an expensive option out there that would provide some of us with more delicate knees a softer surface, but it's approaching 6 figures. I don't think that's what we're interested in. We're looking at more durable painted surface that completely refreshes what's out there and then gets restriped.
Yeah, so if it does get approved, is there an option to approach the pickleball group and like we did with the softball people? and see if they're willing to offer us some support?
Yes, I think they're trying to raise funds for a permanent pickleball facility. So whatever the board wants us to do, we certainly can.
They might be a source to support the nets and.
They're the ones that actually agreed to not do anything this year with the hopes that the CIP request will be funded for next year. If we want to ask them to self-fund portion of it, whether it's a certain percentage or whatever, just say the word and we'll ask them.
Well, and I think as we look at the safekeeping of those portable nets, that, maybe they have an idea. Who knows?
They do.
If we don't ask, this is what we get. Nothing.
There's multiple options.
Good.
One of
Okay.
the options is $200 nets that can be put in a bag and then locked up, but then who has the key? Who wants to manage that? And then is it available for all of the public to use when they want? So logistically, that's a problem. We have to think those details through. They made a recommendation, and the recommendation is what we're pricing out. But Lenny's biggest concern is vandalism. I mean, we have brand new cameras out there, and some of these kids have found them and have let us know that they found them. Unsupervised children are the biggest culprits. Adults that never grew up are the second. And it's never ending. And it's very unfortunate for our staff and the taxpayers, because they're the ones that are paying for the continual cleanup out there. It's unfortunate.
That's why we can't have nice things, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for the manager?
So I won, okay? So can you tell us when it is that we can use the new offices and conference room? Because I have some stuff to leave my house to come here.
The office space is ready to use. There isn't space to store a lot of stuff in there. It's a place to come and conduct your business. If you need something different, we're probably going to have to completely refurnish it.
But we have file cabinets, so we could.
Those file cabinets are the treasurers.
Oh, all of them?
There's 2 of them in there that have always been the treasurers.
Oh. Okay.
That's the space that we have. The conference room, we're waiting on the supplier to come and measure it up. I've given him the dimensions. He said he's coming here twice now. He said, I'll be there next week. The first one was 2 weeks ago. The last one was a week ago. He hasn't been here yet.
When we get the
And I
vault,
think he's busy.
when we get the vault we're gonna reorganize the vault. Maybe we can have a trustee cabinet in there possibly.
We've got plenty of file cabinets. Where they get located is the challenge. The treasurer space ended up taking up more room than we thought, and it's based on the furniture we had available to use. We actually reduced the size of a couple of the wings by a foot. We were stealing 4-foot sections from around the office so that we didn't have to use 5-foot sections. So,
We'll get you space, Linda. You need space, we'll get you space.
Well, I just think versus my storing all this stuff at my house. There's some paper that could just be there, and we could, we'll figure it out. Life is about figuring it out, right?
yeah, we definitely don't have room for 4 file cabinets for each trustee to have in that space.
No, that's not my picture, okay?
You'll get a drawer.
Yeah, really.
Okay, you want to review the motions?
All right, the first motion was to approve the consent agenda as presented, and that was approved. The second motion was to approve the regular agenda as presented, that was approved. The third motion was to approve the 3 applicants for paid on-call EMTs and firefighter. Those 3 applicants were approved. The 4th motion was to approve the cell tower lease modification. That was approved. The 5th motion was to approve the Marquette Township zoning ordinance amendment, and that was approved by roll call vote. And the 6th motion was to approve the modification of the boardroom dais, and that was approved for option 2, and it was change order 1 or 2.
Okay. So for right now, I've got the MTA legislative policy platform in the next agenda. So you can look at that, think about what changes you might want to have or ask questions or whatever, and then we'll put it on the next agenda to vote on it. Okay?
We'll put the budget, well, I guess, email John your availability for October, and we'll try to strategize from some dates for budget meetings in October. If you have just dates you're not available, and then we'll talk about that next meeting. So budget meeting dates. Now, I talked to the supervisor about that today. I'm thinking we could schedule 3 and then have a 4th one just in case we need that. I think 3 should cover it.
Or we add more if we need them.
We can do that.
We may not need 3.
That'd be nice.
Any other comments from anybody? Okay, our next meeting's September 20th. Dan,
Yes, with all that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Support.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:01.